Down, make love. Next on Crown Jewels. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects Crown Jewels. I'm your host, as always, PLD. This is the podcast where I'm going to take you through a journey through Queen, song by song, every version of every song through Queen, through the solo catalogs, and we're going to figure out which version of each song is the crown jewel, the best version of the song to put into our ultimate Queen playlist on Spotify and all other forms of music playlists. And we're also going to see if it slips into my top 10 Queen related tracks of all time. We're a multifaceted podcast. Of course, I'll give you some history, some notes, and quotes. But let's go on to this week's track, Get Down, Make Love from the News of the World album. Some songs have many versions to listen to, some only have a few. So we've got we got 7 versions to listen to figure out which one is the best one. Of course, Get Down, Make Love. We have the original album version from News of the World. As I said, we have an instrumental version that was originally created for the Queen the Eye video game back in the late 90s, also released on the 2017 box set. We have the early take, which is also released on the 2017 News of the World box set. We have a remix by Freddie Bastone from 1991-ish, the Hollywood Records invasion, when Hollywood Records put a lot of producers to work on remixes. Most of them released on the 1991 CD reissues in America. Some of them not so much. This one, not so much. This one from was put together on a Hollywood Records bootleg set, quote unquote bootleg set, where the extra mixes went. And of course, we have 3 live versions to listen to, 2 of them from the Queen era. Queen from Live Killers and then from Rock Montreal, so within 2 years of each other. And then, of course, we do have a version from Queen and Adam Lambert, who finally resurrected the song in 2017 when they're celebrating News of the World. So let's get into it now. Great Get Down, Make Love, written by Freddie Mercury, featuring Freddie on lead and backing vocals, piano and vocalizations, which we'll get into, Brian on the guitars and the harmonizer, John Deacon on bass guitar, Roger Taylor on drums. So that's right, this is a Freddie-only vocal song. And it's really the first really overtly sexual song of the band's catalog. They skirted around the issue before and have definitely used innuendo, but this is their first real, like, just out and out sex song, as it were. I mean, Tie Your Mother Down, he had alluded to it, things like that, but this was really just trying to be sexy, you know? And it's really a glimpse into the future. It's the first time the band tried to get a little bit, say, funkier. We're starting to get to Another One Bites the Dust and that era. There's kind of that slide into that without being too far gone. It still fits in that rock and roll mood, but it's still definitely got a funky side to it. This was played live through 1982 from the News of the World until 1982, but then dropped basically when Queen dropped all of their dancing numbers after the Hot Space debacle. Again, something we're going to get to. Queen went disco, kind of, sort of. It's overblown, but we'll get there. Another One Bites the Dust always stuck there, though, because it was the #1 hit. How can you say no to that? But about 1982, the band dropped it. They never did it. Brian never did it live. Roger never did it live. Queen and Paul Rodgers never did it live. They did bring it back, as I mentioned before, with Queen and Adam Lambert, only though during the 2017 tour, which was the celebration of News of the World. It was one of the couple of News of the World tracks that they would insert into their concerts. They did an edited version. It didn't last a whole lot, and it's not played anymore. So who knows if we'll ever hear it again. One other bit piecing of news for this track. If you listen to the BBC version of It's Late, and we will later on, It's Late is the last track on the News of the World album. Basically, they combine It's Late with Get Down, Make Love. You have It's Late in the beginning. You have this middle instrumental section, which we're going to talk about once we listen to the song, and then it goes back to It's Late. So technically there's a BBC version, but I'm really counting that it's in the It's Late track, so I can't count that as the Get Down, Make Love version. One more thing, I do have interesting covers by Nuno Betancourt of Extreme and 9 Inch Nails. And where can you hear those? I put them on that Google Doc with all the links to the YouTube. Now, if you've listened to me before, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you have no clue. You're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? In the show notes, you're going to find a link to a Google Doc, which will share all the links to YouTube versions that are available of all the versions that I'm going to be talking about. That's how we get away with it here. I'm not going to try to play anything here. I don't want to risk any copyright, whatever. I just don't want to deal with that. So what I do is we'll talk about something. I'll tell you to pause the podcast, click on the link to listen to the YouTube version. Once you're done with that, you come back and I'll talk about that version. And then we'll rinse and repeat until we are done. Well, on that Google Doc for the first time, I actually included those interesting covers. I love Nuno Betancourt's cover. And Nine Inch Nails is very famous and hardcore, but it's impressive enough. Before we get into the actually listening portion, I do have one quote about the song. Brian May from BBC Radio in 1983 stated, "That's the harmonizer thing which I use. I've used it as a noise rather than a musical thing. It's controlled because I had a special little pedal made, which means I can change the interval at which the harmonizer comes back, and the harmonizer is fed back in itself. So it makes all these swooping noises. It's just an exercise in using that together with Freddie's noises, sort of an erotic interlude." And that's what Brian had to say about that. All right, let's get into the first version. We're going to listen to the studio version. So go to that Google Doc, click on that link, come back. I'll be waiting to talk to you about it. All right, there you have the studio version, the very first overtly sexual song, I believe, in the Queen catalog. Very different style of track than the band usually plays. I do love the thumping bass and piano in the beginning. This tells you there's going to be a very different kind of a track. I like that there's a lot of specific noises and percussive noises specifically. Like there's not a lot of like overwhelming buzz going around the whole thing. It's like specific, like a drum beat and a cowbell. Then it's dun 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 dun. But there's a lot of space between the track and the space of the track rather. Instruments play something, then there's that hot space, which is something that's what the album was named after much later on, of course. But it actually works very well here, I think. It's boom, boom. It's like all these little pauses and then a specific noise, pause, a different noise. A lot of experimental things going on, I felt. There is a lot of noise from Ryan throughout the track. That's actually really his job. There's not a whole lot of like real guitar here. There's some power chords during certain sections, like every time I get high, I want you want to come down. That part, there's some definitely power chords going on there and some buzz. It's a lot of Brian saying using that harmonizer thing. It's like it's a thing. It's cool. I do appreciate it. I do like it. It's actually, again, it's interesting to hear Brian in a different aspect. But overall, it's much more noise than very guitar driven. There's a lot of Freddie vocalizations. There's a lot of moments where it's a little dazed and confused, a little bit of that emotion of the very random Freddie erotic sounding vocalizations. I don't want to know what Freddie did in the studio, but we'll have to see. Well, I'm hearing about it. Rather, Brian mentioned it as an erotic interlude. Freddie just vocalizations all over the place as the noise goes back and forth, the harmonizer going up and down the scales. A lot of hurry up and stop, though. When it's not being meandering, not being meandering sounds like a bad word, but it's kind of more wandering, I guess. It goes through those emotions, especially in the middle section. During the rest of the track, it's a lot of hurry up and stop. Like it feels like you're kind of like push, power, 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 stop, hold off, push, 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 stop, hold off. After the big interlude, which I'm gonna admit I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of that. It works a little bit for Dazed and Confused, but I'm not even a big fan of that section in Dazed and Confused either. I'm sure it's great when you're high. Turn off the lights and you get high. Maybe that's fine. This just doesn't work well outside of that for me. Maybe it does for you. Hey, if it works for you, perfect. I at least in the studio, it's mercifully short, and we're back to that finale, which brings back into the regular section again. And that's where it ends. So that's the first. It's the studio version, like I said. Let's listen now to the instrumental version. I have a lot to say about the instrumental version already, what I think about what I remember hearing. I always like to do, what you don't know is a little behind the scenes in the podcast. When I tell you to pause to listen, I actually pause myself and listen to it specifically so I have it like right off the top of my head, so I can really kind of get that fresh sound in my ears as I listen to it. So I'm doing the same thing you are. I'm going to hit pause, so you hit pause. I'll listen to it, you listen to it, come back, have a conversation. Okay, that's the instrumental version. Now, if you listen to this podcast before, you'll know that as far as Crown Jewel goes, I've always been like a non-instrumental guy. I always say that it's an interesting curio, which it is. I like hearing them because I get to hear a lot of different things that kind of get buried in the mix, things that come out that you wouldn't be able to hear it generally. So it's always interesting. It's always a different way to listen. But as far as a crown jewel goes, why would I ever take a track that doesn't have Freddie Mercury's voice on it, or even Brian or Rogers? I mean, a complete Queen track is always going to be better than just a part of a Queen track, right? Um, this, well, it may not be the complete exception to the rule. I'm not going to say this is my crown jewel. What I will say, though, it is the exception to the normal rule in terms of I would actually put it in contention. Part of me wants to say right now, I think I lean towards the instrumental more than the vocal version, the more than the studio version. And I don't know why that necessarily is. I mean, it's not that Freddie's voice is bad. It's never bad. But I will say it's not a very memorable vocal track. It's a lot of vocalizations, and part of that is a little, to me, I don't know if annoying is way too strong of a word, but I'm just like not into the whole in the middle section with all the different voice parts of it. I do think that the actual vocal track is kind of a not anything special, especially out of Freddie. So getting to hear a lot more of the Brian stuff. There's some Wandering Brian's buried in this instrumental mix. Some extra Brian stuff. I don't know if that was some of the stuff. I'm actually not even sure if it was in the studio version. I don't know if this instrumental mix added a few things from different takes. I did hear a few extra maybe piano twinkles. And at the end of the atmospheric bits, we got some more guitar bits out of Brian. There were real guitar bits. So in a way, there's a lot more in the instrumental version that I do like. So a crown jewel, I don't know, but this is definitely the closest an instrumental has gotten at least so far in our podcast. But I don't know what you think. Let me know. All right, next up we got the early take. This is just an earlier version, more closer to a demo. In fact, a little spoiler: there is definitely some vocal lines missing, some da dee da das, and Freddie just kind of making up words as he goes along a little bit. But again, released on that 2017 News of the World box set, which had a whole CD full of early takes and alternate versions, etc. So, without any further ado, hit that pause, go to that early take, listen to it, and then come back. And of course, we will talk about it. There you have it there, the early take. You know, we hear in the beginning of he had some studio bits in the beginning. The whole CD of early takes, Queen added a lot of that to kind of, I don't know, make you feel like you're in the studio. I kind of think it's cool to hear it. I don't know if I'd actually want it on a playlist like that, but I'd sacrifice if it's good enough. It opens up with the more heavy piano. I feel like the piano and bass is there, but the piano sounds a little more prominent. I don't know if they just turned the bass down a little bit. Essentially, right away, this felt a lot more fluid and kind of felt like more like a live band situation rather than a studio creation. Part of it is it feels like that you're still trying out the song. They obviously decided to go into the direction they went, but I'm not certain that was the best decision. I mean, everybody has their own opinions, and if it worked for Queen, then I mean, they're the ones who made all the money. They're the ones who are the rock stars. I'm the guy sitting at home. Personally, though, I think it was a not so great decision to do that. I kind of like the more fluid live band feel, and definitely get a little bit more of Brian jamming in this one. He's trying out to fill those spaces here and there, especially in lieu of some of the lack of Freddie vocalizations. Freddie got some voices in there, no doubt. Again, like I said before we went to listen to it, there's some lines that aren't there yet, and he's kind of making up some words here and there, or just making some doody da 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 da's kind of thing, as it were. Best thing for me is it takes out that instrumental middle section. That the atmospheric section is gone. It's replaced by just a little bit of improv jamming from the band. As Roger said at the end, there's some good bits in there. So definitely a worthwhile addition to hear. Definitely, I'm glad you got a chance to listen to it. It's very cool. I do appreciate that. So, all right, next up, we're going to have the Freddie Bastone mix. Freddie Bastone mix. Come up there, look into that track, and then come back and I will talk about it. Get down. There you have it, the Freddie Bastone mix again. 1991 Hollywood Records got the Queen catalog for North America, reissued all the albums on CD, included many DJ remixes as bonus tracks instead of diving into the archives. I never knew if that was a Hollywood Records decision or if Queen didn't want to open up the vaults. Queen has been somewhat stingy at times as far as the vaults go. And I don't know, maybe Hollywood Records they didn't want Hollywood Records to release these yet until they were going to release them for something. Either way, if that's the case, it makes sense to me. Quite frankly, it makes sense to me because the one track on the first album, Mad the Swine, that Hollywood got accidentally, I guess, they did release that and they used that. And so I kind of feeling that if Hollywood Records had the ability to release a lot of these bonus tracks or these vault tracks, that they would have. But instead, we got a lot of DJs remixing Queen songs, but not all of them made the reissues. One which way that they were used, if they weren't, was on a promotional record called the Unauthorized Club Record. 10 tracks full of Queen remixes by DJs, some of which had done other tracks that were on the albums. Freddie Bastone, for example, did do Seven Seas of Rye on Queen 2, but his version of Get Down, Make Love was not used until the Unauthorized Club Record, released around that same time. Not released, it was a promotional record, so as it were. As far as what it is, I mean, it's good for what it is. It's good for a club mix. I don't love it. It takes a lot of different Queen elements, which what Freddie Bastone does. It includes, it's really based on more of that jazz from the Jazz album, which we haven't gotten to yet, the Roger Taylor track from the Jazz album. After those drums come from, some of the guitar work comes from that. He takes samples from We'll Rock You, the guitar solo, The Show Must Go On from Innuendo album from 1991. That's the go on, like warbly kind of vocal thing that goes on there. You hear a little bit of the Prophet song for Night at the Opera. Well, atmospheric type stuff. There's also some definitely NBA Jam style moments in the middle there. It's also really a bit of fun. It's ultimately also, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be forgettable for me comparatively. It was in a club. I mean, it's pretty cool. That's what it's for, though, right? So I don't know. It's your miles may vary on it for this track. I'll spoil this. Spoiler alert: this is not going to be the crown jewel for me, at least. Maybe it is for you. If it is, let me know why. All right, let's click on and move on to the live versions. We have 3 live versions. This time, I'm going to have you listen to 2. Have you listen to both the Live Killers version and the Rock Montreal version if you want to. They're both from similar time frames, 79 and 81. So it's not too far away. It's nothing too different about them. They're pretty much the same type of presentation in both, just different concert versions. So you might have listened to both of them. We'll come back and I'll talk about both of them in one go before we move on to Queen Adam Lambert's version. So click on that link, find out where you are. 2 versions. Come back for more. Get down, make love. You take my... All right, I got 2 live versions to listen to. First off, once again, I got to talk about the Live Killers version. If you've heard me before, this is going to be not new information for you. If you haven't, though, Live Killers was a live album Queen produced in 1979. It wasn't actually live takes. They really doctored it to hell. In fact, like this track, Get Down, Make Love, was cut and paste from, I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 different versions that I know of. 5 different concert versions. They took little bits and pieces. I get this information from queenlive.ca. My friend Bob Wigner runs that site. If you wanted to know anything about the Queen, Freddie Mercury Queen era live, that's where you go. And according to the analysis done by listening to all the different bootlegs from that Live Killers tour, which is what made up the Live Killers album, from 0 to 38 seconds is unknown. From 38 seconds to 1:43 is from Barcelona, February 20th of 1979. 1:43 to 2:12, unknown. 2:12 to 2:35, Paris, February 28th, 1979. 2:35 to 3:17, Paris, March 1st, 1979. 3:17 to 3:44, Frankfurt, February 2nd, 1979. 3:44 to 4:04, again unknown. And 4:04 to 4:31, Lyon, February 17th, 1979. This is all fans that have listened to all these bootlegs and have kind of cleared out, oh, this is from this piece. I can remember the analysis is done is amazing. I could never do it. I'm not going to lie. Live Killers is like a love-hate album because I love the time period. I love the set list, granted, and everything else. But I don't love the mixing. Roger Taylor has come out and said he hates the mix of the album. Band has never really liked the album. We have not gotten this reissued in a while. But there's rumors of a box set eventually. I'm hoping what they'll do is go back and just give us actual versions instead. Maybe a retake on Live Killers or have then a reissue of Live Killers. I don't know. But that's what we have here. Versus Montreal, which is just the version from Montreal. As far as what the performance is, it's fairly close to the studio version. They do go a little bit further into the atmosphere because you think about it, they're live on stage. You can get that fog going, you get the lights going. You're allowed to have a little bit more room to play. It's still with the harmonizer, though. Still with the sound clouds, as it were. It's not exactly more jamming. It's just more like a moving sound structure, so to speak. So to me, I'm sure it's great in concert, especially if you taking a hit or something to that effect potentially. But as far as the audio thing goes, it's fine. It's fine. Rock Montreal, I would prefer to Live Killers, I think, only if nothing else because I love the mix from Rock Montreal better. Queen Rock Montreal is one of the best Queen releases they have ever done. It might be the best, and actually includes some extra excellent work from Brian in the middle section. But you tell me which one you like better. And do you like it live versus studio? I mean, studio live version definitely gives them room to play a little bit. And this is definitely kind of a playful song. Some people like the more studio creations where they can do a little bit more. All right, that's it for the Queen live versions. We got one more version to listen to. Again, I said it, they resurrected it for Queen Adam Lambert in 2017. Let's listen to Adam fronting Queen and come back and we'll see where that one falls.
Get down, make love. Get down, make love.
And there you go there from Los Angeles 2017. It is the kind of an edited version. They don't play the full on version. Much slower and slinkier. Again, I don't know if that's purposeful or if it's Brian and Roger, slowing down a little bit. Some of the tempos of the songs are not quite as intense. I'm not slighting them in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it might just be the way they choose to play it. But it might be Adam's choice as well. He definitely, like for Dragon Attack, which we will get to, he likes it slow and slinky. He's very dramatic. He's got a very sexual energy about him. It's definitely a song that I think plays to his strengths as far as performance goes. And again, the vocal is not exactly a typical challenging vocal, nor is it a memorable vocal. Adam does some cool vocalizations. Not gonna lie there, but otherwise, it's not a whole lot different. Other than it's Adam singing instead of Freddie. Obviously, the big one, right? But that's about it. All right, that's all the versions we got for you. That's all the ones. So now the time has come to rank these crown jewel versions. What is the crown jewel, the best version? Well, I'm going to give it to you without even thinking about it, because I kind of got it already at the top of my head. From the least to the best. Coming in the last place, the one I've listened to the least, the Freddie Basto mix. It's fun, it's mashup of stuff, but it's not the song. It's not really anything to do with the song itself. It's got some pieces of the song. But if I'm going to listen to Get Down, Make Love, unless I'm in a very club mood or I want to put on a bunch of club songs, I'm not going to listen to it. Sorry. All right, next up from there is where I slide in the Queen and Adam Lambert version. A little too slow for my taste. Maybe if I had a professionally studio recording version of it. This is not, the Queen and Adam Lambert version was not on one of the live albums. It was just a bootleg I've heard. So maybe that could play into it. It's fine. It's fine. From there, Live Killers, then Rock Montreal. I got them both in the same range. I do like Rock Montreal better, definitively by far. But that tells you right there, all the live versions are down there. So it's definitely a studio version, which is my crown jewel. So we got the early take or the album version or the instrumental version. What comes next? Next up is the album version. This is where I put the album version. So that means the crown jewel is going to be either the instrumental version, holy cow, that'll be your first, or it's going to be the early take. Well, instrumental nuts, is this your time? Unfortunately not. It's not. It's not. Instrumental version is not my crown jewel, although it was close. I did give it actual consideration far more than I usually do. But in this case, I really enjoyed the early take. That sounded like a live band playing. I like hearing Freddie's. He has some great vocal takes in this. I actually prefer the vocal takes here than the studio version, the album version, I should say. There's some different tries, even if the lyrics aren't quite done. I still rather listen to this. They're mostly done. It's not like the whole song was do-do-do-dee-dee-dees. If that was the case, it couldn't be a crown jewel. But I'll let it a little bit slide if I can get some more of the band interaction, some more of the jamming, some more of the Brian parts of the song. So that would do it for us then. That is going to be the crown jewel. It's going to be the early take from the 2017 News of the World box set. There you go. Now we get to rate the song on a scale of 1 to 11, because we always turn up things to 11 here on PLD Projects. This one is not my favorite Queen song. You've probably gotten that from the way I've talked about it throughout. It's fine, but is not what I choose to listen to a lot. I'm going to give this a 5. It's a 5. Could go as high as a 6 maybe on some days. The early take might be actually a 6, 6.5. But overall, as a track, I don't know if I'd skip it all the time. I'd probably listen to it. If it came up on shuffle, I'd kind of listen to it. But I have a hard time thinking about myself pushing that button on, I'm going to play this track. If it's in the playlist, sure. But if I'm going to take out that one particularly, probably not. So I'm going to give this a 5 out of 11. So there's no way the heck is it going to slide into my top 10. No chance at all. So that solves that riddle right there. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week here on Crown Jewels. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Next week has got another track from News of the World as we continue on down the News of the World album train, as it were. It's a interesting blues track, which is I'm going to be very interested talking to you about. It's called Sleeping on the Sidewalk. It's a song they did in one take. And it's a Brian May lead vocal. It's a bluesy track, and it's a lot of fun. So stay tuned next week for that track. Definitely for sure. But that is next week, not this week. I want to thank you guys for supporting us. If you want to support us even further, click that like, click that subscribe, leave comments, share it, let people know we are here. I did just hit 500 subscribers on my main YouTube channel, which is about film and TV. I already hit 500 subscribers plus on the Crown Jewels side of things. Hopefully I get some more Queen remixes to put on the page soon, but mostly Crown Jewels. So I can't blame you there. If you want to join even further, patreon.com/PLD projects. You can join a bunch of different people. We have a great Facebook chat going on. I do some extra bonus content. I've been thinking about what I could do music-wise, because all my bonus content on Patreon is usually movie-related, but maybe I could find a way to do some different bonus music Queen stuff potentially. Maybe listens along, maybe a concert watch along. Who knows? But I'm definitely considering it. But that's wonderful. But you can join people such as we got Jeff Alterman, Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris, Brandon Buckingham. Great people. Join the crew. Love it. If not, completely understand. I completely understand that you can't do it. It's definitely some trying financial times for everybody. So any way you can help is greatly appreciated, of course. All right, I think that'll do it. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned. As always, keep yourself alive. God save the Queen. And if you're lucky, get down, make love.